Grandmother burst into tears of joy when she accidentally found her grandson, who had disappeared 12 years ago among the vendors at a local flea market. A heartwarming story. It all started on a Friday night, one of those crisp, late October evenings in Ohio, where the air smells like wood smoke and dying leaves. I remember I was on the couch, half watching some boring documentary about deep-sea creatures, the kind of thing you put on just for the noise. The house was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. My wife, Sarah, and I had built this life together over 15 years, brick by brick. A nice two-story house in a Columbus suburb. A manicured lawn I spent every Saturday morning mowing. 2 cars in the garage. From the outside, we were the American dream. The kind of couple you'd see in a commercial for a home security system. Solid, dependable, happy. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a text from Sarah. "Hey hun, having a great time. Don't wait up for me. Jessica's husband Tom is giving everyone a ride home later. Love you." I smiled. It was Jessica's big promotion party. She had just made partner at her law firm, and Sarah, who had been her best friend since college, was over the moon. I typed back, "Sounds good. Have fun. Love you too." A sense of simple, domestic peace washed over me. I was a good husband. She was a good wife. This was our life. I clicked off the TV, the silence of the house settling in around me. I went upstairs, brushed my teeth, and climbed into our big, empty, king-sized bed. The sheets on her side were cold. I fell asleep thinking about how lucky I was. The buzz of my phone on the nightstand jolted me awake. The red glow of the alarm clock read 1:47 a.m. It was another text from Sarah. My heart did a little nervous flutter, the kind it always does when the phone rings in the middle of the night. "Change of plans, sweetie. Tom had a little too much fun and can't drive. Can you pretty please come get me? So sorry to wake you. I'll send the address." I sighed, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Of course, it was no big deal. I was her husband. This is what we did for each other. I fumbled for my glasses. "On my way," I texted back. A moment later, a location pin dropped into our chat. I tapped on it. The address was on the west side of town, in an industrial area I didn't recognize. That seemed odd. I knew Jessica and Tom lived in a new development out near Dublin, with sprawling houses and community pools. Why would they have a party in a warehouse district? Maybe it was a trendy new event space, I reasoned. Some converted factory with exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Sarah was always more in the know about that stuff than I was. I pulled on a sweatshirt and jeans, grabbed my keys, and headed out into the chilly night. The streets were deserted. My car's headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating empty sidewalks and sleeping houses. As I drove further west, the familiar, cozy suburban landscape gave way to flat, nondescript commercial buildings and chain-link fences. The streetlights became sparser, casting long, eerie shadows. A knot of unease began to form in my stomach. This didn't feel like a place for a party. It felt abandoned. Finally, my GPS announced, "You have arrived." I pulled up to the address. It wasn't a trendy event hall. It wasn't even a restaurant. It was a low, single-story brick building set back from the road, with a large, mostly empty parking lot. The sign out front was faded and unlit, but I could just make out the words Mid-Ohio Commerce Center. There were maybe 4 or 5 cars scattered across a lot big enough for 100. My beat-up sedan felt conspicuously out of place next to a gleaming new pickup truck and a couple of late-model SUVs. I killed the engine, and the silence was absolute. No thumping bass from party music, no sounds of laughter or chatter spilling out into the night. Just the low hum of an old sodium lamp overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow on the cracked asphalt. I looked at the building again. Most of the windows were dark. This wasn't a party, so where was my wife? I texted her, "I'm here, outside." A minute passed, then another. The knot in my stomach tightened. I started scanning the other cars. A dark blue Ford F-150, a white Lexus SUV, a gray Honda. None of them belonged to anyone I knew from her friend group. My mind started racing, trying to fill in the blanks, trying to make it all make sense. Maybe the party was in a specific suite in the back. Maybe it was a very small, quiet gathering, and they were all just wrapping up. Every explanation I came up with felt flimsy, like a paper-thin wall I was trying to build against a flood of doubt. Finally, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "So sorry, we're all just saying our goodbyes. Jessica is a mess, LOL. 5 more minutes, promise. 5 more minutes, okay, I could do 5 more minutes." I leaned my seat back and stared up at the car's ceiling, trying to breathe. My brain, now fully awake and on high alert, began replaying the last few months. There had been things, small things I'd brushed aside. The hushed phone calls she'd end abruptly when I walked into the room, waving a hand dismissively and saying, "Oh, just my mom." The way our joint savings account had taken a significant hit a few months back. "It's for Dad's new roof," she had explained. "He's too proud to ask us for help, so I just sent it." It was an emergency. I'd accepted it without question. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife. We trusted each other. But there was also the new secretiveness around her laptop. The way she'd angle the screen away from me. She claimed she was planning a surprise anniversary trip for us. "You're not allowed to peek," she'd say with a playful grin. A grin that now, sitting alone in this desolate parking lot, felt practiced, hollow. The 5 minutes stretched into 10, then 15. A cold dread, sharp and metallic, began to creep into my veins. This feeling was worse than anger. It was a profound sense of foolishness, the feeling of a man who has been confidently walking on solid ground only to realize it's been a thin sheet of ice all along. I felt like an idiot, the loving husband, waiting patiently in the car, ready to chauffeur his wife home from a party that clearly didn't exist. I grabbed my phone to call her. As I did, I remembered something else. Just last week, I'd been running errands downtown and had seen a familiar face getting into a shiny new black pickup truck, the exact same model as the one parked just 50 feet away from me now. It was David, Sarah's ex-husband, the man she swore she hadn't spoken to in a decade. The man she described as a painful chapter, best left closed. She'd told me he moved to Florida years ago to start a new life. But there he was, clear as day, on a street in Columbus. And there was his truck, parked right here, right now, outside the building where my wife was supposed to be at a party. The pieces weren't just clicking into place anymore. They were slamming together with the force of a car crash. The emergency for her dad's roof. The secret phone calls. Her surprise planning on the laptop. David being in town. This empty, silent building. My hands were shaking as I dialed her number. It rang once, twice, and she picked up, her voice a little too bright, a little too breathless. "Hey, sweetie, so sorry for the wait. I'm walking out right now, I promise." Jessica just gets so emotional, you know how she is. But I wasn't listening to her words. I was listening to the background. And there was no party. There was no music, no crowd of happy, tipsy people. There was only a quiet room, and then, just before she spoke, I heard a man's voice, calm and clear, say something in the background. It wasn't loud, but in the dead silence of my car, it was unmistakable. He said, "All right, I've confirmed with the bank. The final wire transfer for the land purchase will clear on Monday morning." Silence. The land purchase. Wire transfer. Monday morning. The lie was so enormous, so audacious, it almost sucked the air from my lungs. My mind went blank for a second, a pure white static of shock and betrayal. I couldn't form a response. I just listened to her breathing on the other end of the line, waiting for me to say something. Anything. "Mark?" she asked, her voice losing its forced cheerfulness and taking on a nervous edge. "Honey, are you there?" Without a word, I ended the call. I put the phone down on the passenger seat. My heart was pounding, not with anger, but with a strange, chilling clarity. The fog of 15 years of comfortable trust had evaporated in an instant, revealing a landscape I didn't recognize at all. I was not married to the woman I thought I was. The life I thought we had built was a facade, and I was sitting in the dark, in the cold, like a fool, while she was inside conducting her real life, a life I had absolutely no part in. I had to see it. I couldn't just drive away. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I got out of my car, the quiet crunch of my sneakers on the loose gravel sounding like gunshots in the silence. I didn't walk toward the front door she would eventually come out of. Instead, I circled around the side of the building, hugging the shadows of the brick wall. The air was cold on my face. My breath came out in white puffs. Around the back, I saw it. A single window, its vertical blinds slightly askew, spilling a slice of sterile office light onto the dark, untended grass below. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, the point of no return. I took a deep breath, crept closer, and positioned myself so I could peer through the gap in the blinds. The scene inside was quiet, professional, and utterly devastating. It was a generic conference room, an oval table in the center, a whiteboard on the wall, and sitting around the table were 4 people. There was Sarah, my wife, looking more alive and radiant than I had seen her in years. Her face was lit up with passion and excitement. Next to her was Jessica, her best friend, looking not at all emotional or tipsy, but sharp and focused. Across from them sat Jessica's husband, Tom, the supposed designated driver who'd had too much fun. He was poring over a stack of architectural blueprints, and sitting at the head of the table, commanding the room with a relaxed confidence, was David, her ex-husband. On the table between them were not the remnants of a party, but laptops, binders, and piles of official-looking documents. In the center sat an uncorked bottle of sparkling apple cider and 4 coffee mugs. They weren't celebrating a promotion. They were celebrating a deal, a business, their business. My wife, her best friend's husband, and her ex-husband. A secret team. Sarah laughed at something David said, a genuine, uninhibited laugh. She leaned forward, placing her hand on his forearm in a gesture of shared triumph and easy intimacy. It wasn't romantic, not in the way that would have sparked simple jealousy. It was something far worse. It was a look of deep, profound partnership, a look of a shared dream, a look that said, "We did this together." It was a look she hadn't given me in a very, very long time. In that one devastating moment, I understood everything. I wasn't her partner. I was her anchor, her safe harbor, the stable, predictable man who paid the mortgage on the house she came home to after she was done living her real life. The $15,000 for her dad's roof was seed money. The secret laptop sessions were business planning. The whole thing, maybe for years, had been an elaborate, carefully constructed lie. I had been living with a stranger. I didn't knock on the glass. I didn't shout. I just backed away, melting back into the shadows. A strange numbness washed over me, pushing down the rage and the pain. I walked back to my car, got in, and drove away. I didn't even look in the rearview mirror. I just drove home. To our house, to our life, which I now knew was a stage set for a play I didn't know I was in. I sat in the dark living room, on the couch we had picked out together, and waited. An hour later, her car pulled into the driveway. She came in, practically bouncing, her face flushed with excitement. "Oh, honey, you left. I'm so sorry. We just got talking and I lost track of time. The party was just incredible. Jessica cried when she opened her gift, and..." She stopped, trailing off as she saw me sitting there in the dark. I didn't say anything. I just watched her, letting her lies hang in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. The cheerful mask fell from her face, replaced by confusion, then dawning horror as she realized I knew. "Mark?" she whispered. "What's wrong? Why are you sitting in the dark?" I took a slow breath. My voice, when it finally came, was quiet and steady, devoid of any emotion at all. "How was the business meeting, Sarah? With David?" Her face crumpled. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. First came the frantic denial, then the sputtering justifications. "It's not what you think. I was going to tell you. I was afraid. You're always so cautious, Mark. You never want to take any risks. I did this for us." But her words were hollow. The trust had been pulverized. The next morning, as I was numbly making coffee, my phone rang. It was Jessica. "Mark, please, don't be angry with her," she pleaded. "She loves you. This business, it's a real estate venture. It's going to be huge. We've been working on it for almost 2 years now, ever since she got that inheritance from her aunt, and decided to invest it instead of just putting it in savings. Inheritance. My blood ran cold. She had told me that money was from a series of big freelance projects she had landed. It was another lie, a deeper, older one. Our entire financial reality, I realized, was a fiction she had created. The deception wasn't a recent lapse in judgment. It was the foundation of our life together. It wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. It was about the years. Years of looking me in the eye and telling me one thing while living a completely different life. It was the realization that my marriage had been a carefully managed performance, and I was the unsuspecting audience of one. I went upstairs and packed a duffel bag. Just the essentials: clothes, my work laptop, my toothbrush. I walked past the pictures on the wall, our wedding, our vacations, our smiling faces, and I felt nothing. They were photographs of people I didn't know. I came downstairs. Sarah was in the kitchen, her face streaked with tears. She started begging, promising to sell her stake in the business, to cut off all contact with David, to do anything. But I wasn't listening. Her voice was just noise. I walked to the front door and opened it. The morning sun was bright, the air clean. It felt like the first real thing I had experienced in years. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced one last time at the house. She was standing in the doorway, a silhouette framed by the warm, inviting light of a home that was no longer mine. I didn't feel sadness or anger. I just felt quiet. The long, empty road stretched out before me. I had no idea where I was going, but for the first time in a very long time, I was free.